Imagine stepping into Harlem on a warm September evening in 1948. The air hums with jazz. The smell of fried chicken and collard greens drifts through a crowded restaurant, and one man's calm defiance changes everything. This story has loyalty, power, and a single razor that shifted New York's underworld forever. Stay tuned for tense confrontations, respect earned, and a king who ruled without firing a shot. If you love tales of real strength and grit, like and subscribe for more. It was September 19th, 1948. Wells' restaurant on 135th Street felt alive. Every seat taken, diners chatting over ribeyes and catfish. The jukebox spun Dizzy Gillespie's Manteca, and cigarette smoke curled toward the ceiling like drifting spirits. At his usual corner booth sat Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson, known throughout Harlem as its unchallenged sovereign. Across from him, Mrs. Johnson watched his every precise movement as he cut into a medium-rare steak. He savored each bite with methodical calm, unaware that outside forces were about to shatter the peace he'd maintained for years. Bumpy's reign had begun in the early 1930s when Madame Stephanie St. Clair, the brilliant mind behind Harlem's numbers game, faced ruin. Dutch Schultz and the Italian mob had muscled in, threatening to crush her empire. Desperate, she turned to young Bumpy Johnson. "Protect my operation," she urged in 1932. "I'll make you king of this neighborhood." Bumpy delivered. By 1948, every penny wagered on three-digit numbers in all of Harlem flowed through his hands. To the people, the numbers game was hope, a chance to feed children, pay rent, or buy school books. To the mob families, it was profit meant for them alone. Inside Wells' restaurant, no conflict was allowed. Musicians, preachers, numbers runners, politicians, even cops. Every contender respected the unspoken treaty. No violence on these red leather booths. But on that evening, the doors swung open and 6 armed men strode in, led by Sal S. the Butcher Bonanno. He stood 6'2", stocky, clad in an expensive suit. His nickname recalled a Brooklyn beating so brutal, his victim was found in pieces across 4 boroughs. These were the muscles Joe Bonanno had sent to take Harlem's crown. Conversation halted, forks froze. S. Bonanno approached the Johnsons' table, sidestepping. Polite introductions. He leaned in, voice loud. "Ellsworth Johnson, we need to talk." Bumpy did not look up. He continued his meal, the knife's edge whispering against porcelain. "I'm eating," he said softly, then glanced up with a thin, knowing smile, one that chills a man when he realizes he's already lost. "My Uncle Joe says it's time Harlem came into line," S. explained. "Numbers are Italian business now. You'll hand over operations, keep 10% as your cut, stay as figurehead. We'll run the real money." Mrs. Johnson's eyes narrowed, contempt clear as ice. Bumpy set his knife down and picked up his napkin. Calm as always, he folded it and replied, "I must decline." S. Bonanno's face darkened. "You're making a mistake." Then he spat the one word that shattered the fragile silence, an insult so vile no black man would tolerate it in his own home. The clatter of Mrs. Johnson's fork on her plate rang like a gunshot. Every diner froze, breaths held. Bumpy's expression never wavered, but the room felt colder, heavier. At last he reached into his vest and withdrew his trademark straight razor, the blade he had carried since he was 16, the one that built his reputation. He placed it gently on the table beside his steak knife. 6 men with guns in my restaurant, he said quietly, voice edged with steel. "You think that makes you dangerous?" S. tried to retort, but Bumpy held up a hand. "Allow me to introduce you to my true protection." Rising, Bumpy pointed to diners one by one. "That man by the door? I paid his daughter's hospital bills when she had pneumonia. The woman in the red dress, her husband beat her. I made him stop. The boy washing dishes, framed by crooked cops. I got him free. He advanced, oblivious to the drawn weapons trained on him. 40 people in here owe me their lives, their families. You brought 6 guns. I've got 40 soldiers just not wearing uniforms. Uncertainty flickered in S. Bonanno's eyes. Bumpy lowered his voice to a whisper. I'll give you 2 options. Apologize to my wife for that word. Walk out of here. Tell Joe Bonanno Harlem isn't for sale. Or I open this razor and show you why they call this my kingdom. The steel glinted ominously. Sal Bonanno had spilled blood of 17 men. He was not a man prone to fear, yet he stood petrified, trapped by the silent stares of every witness. Finally, his pistol hand shook. With a voice cracking, he addressed Mrs. Johnson. I apologize. That word was wrong. He backed away, his men following, guns lowered but still trembling. At the door, he paused. This isn't over, he spat. Bumpy, already seated, sliced another piece of steak. Yes, it is, he said without looking up. You just don't know it yet. The door swung shut behind them. The restaurant held its breath for a heartbeat. Then applause erupted, slow at first, then thunderous. Patrons rose to cheer as Bumpy sat back, cutting his steak with serene precision. Mrs. Johnson reached for his hand. You didn't have to do that, she whispered. Yes, I did, he replied. Respect is everything. Lose that and you've lost it all. That night, Sal Bonanno fled Harlem and never returned. 3 days later, an emergency meeting convened in Manhattan. Joe Bonanno demanded revenge. Frank Costello, the true overlord of New York's families, leaned forward and declared, Bumpy Johnson runs Harlem because Harlem wants him. If we try to seize it by force, we start a war we cannot win, not because we can't kill Bumpy, but because we'll face 40,000 people who'd die for him. Leave Harlem alone. And they did. From that moment on, the Italian mob never again attempted to wrest control of Harlem's numbers. They negotiated and paid tribute, offering the respect they'd once scorned. Bumpy's razor never left its sheath again. He ruled not by bullets, but through loyalty earned and power made absolute by the love of his community. Sal Bonanno died of a sudden heart attack in 1952. Some whispered Bumpy's long memory delivered the final blow, but the truth remained a secret between old enemies. In the years that followed, no one ever dared insult Bumpy Johnson under his roof again. Wells' Restaurant became legend, the place where one man's unshakable dignity rewrote the rules of crime in New York City. It proved that sometimes the sharpest weapon isn't forged from steel, but from the unwavering support of those you protect. If you'd like more stories like these, please like and subscribe.